Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast, presented by the Fantasy Football World Championship, home to the industry's most accurate rankings.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Adam Krautwurst, and with me, as always, is Jack Colsheen. And tonight we have a special guest with us tonight, Robbie Dinges, who's a high-stakes player, doing really well this season. Unfortunately, he's a Cowboys fan as well, so not a good week for that. But other than that, Robbie, how's everything going, my friend?
Everything's going great. Looking for the Cowboys to bounce back this week against the Dolphins. So we'll see what happens there, right?
I immediately
like that. Yeah.
Became a Cowboys fan right after the game. I'm a Bills fan, Western New York. As soon as we beat the Cowboys, I became the biggest Cowboys fan in the entire league. So
perfect.
Definitely.
Mercenary.
Jack, how's everything going with you, my friend?
Hey, doing well. We're at that time of the season where it's like I'm trying to decide whether I'm more excited to see how this ends or just like excited for it to end and just the relief of not having to stress and go through all of these big decisions. Either way, we're in the home stretch.
Yes, we are. So before we get going here tonight, guys, we're going to talk about a lot of the playoff stuff that's going on right now, the fantasy playoffs here, the world championships, stuff like that. Robbie, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself and more importantly, how you're doing this year, because you're having an excellent season.
Yeah, so it's my 10th year with Full-Time Fantasy. I've been doing it all but 1 year, I guess, since it's been there. I've been in Vegas for the opening draft, 8 times, 7 times, something like that. Now I've got a bunch of buddies. We go travel to it. We have one of the best times ever. That first week is awesome. And this week was extra special at Circa and Topgolf and now a couple of my buddies, we bring our 21-year-old, 22-year-old sons now, and they're getting into it. And so it's really cool. That's kind of our thing. So we had a really good season. I did this year. I did 10 World Championship teams, and then I did 5 mid-stakes. And the good news is 9 of my 10 World Championships made the playoffs. One of them was a dominator.
Yeah.
One of them in the league playoffs. And then I got 9 teams playing for the big money. And then in my mid-stakes, I had 4 of my 5 teams make the playoffs. So that was all great.
Excellent.
Mid-stakes, I'm doing, had a decent week last week. I still got, all 4 of them are in contention to win the league. And I don't know, I think I got one in 59th place, which, it's still out a little bit, but you never know. That's a team that I actually partner with my son and my daughter's fiance, and we put the team together, and we finished the year at 9th, and now we're at 59th after week 1, but never know. And then on my World Championship teams, they're unfortunately 7 of my 9 teams performed under the average for the year.
That's right.
But we're still hanging on here.
There you go. Listen, there's 2 more weeks left.
Right.
I'm right there with you. I got a lot of that situation going on. Listen, co-owning a team with your son and your daughter's fiance, that's the circle of trust, fucker, right? I mean, once you get in there, there's no getting out. There's no getting out. Fantasy football, money on the line. That's excellent stuff. But no, Robbie, that's excellent to hear. And yeah, dude, the Vegas experience circa out here, I say out here like I'm there now, I wish, but out in Vegas is just so good. I can't wait for next season. A lot of great stuff coming. 5-year agreement they made with Circa, so that's excellent stuff from Scott and Ian. So it's gonna be great next season. I can't wait. But yeah, let's dive into the show tonight, guys. Let's dive into to kind of what we're here to talk about. And let's talk about Jack made a nice little spreadsheet here of all the teams here, all the players and the percentages of the top 10 and overall percentage. Jack, break this sheet down. We're going to go position by position and kind of most commonly owned players and stuff like that. But talk to everybody about the sheet here.
Sure. So the spreadsheet is not exhaustive of all players on all teams in the championship round. I focused in on all the players that are rostered on a top 10 team. So this gives us a really good look at the people who are in the lead right now, the players that they have, how concentrated they are in the top 10, and then kind of versus the overall or the rest of the everyone not in the top 10 is in that overall percentage column. And then it's kind of sorted then based on those percentages. So there's a few things that jump out to me, at least. At the top, you could see Christian McCaffrey, both the highest owned player, over half or right at half, 5 out of 10 of those top 10 teams have Christian McCaffrey. And he's also 10% of the 206 championship field teams. So by far and away is clearly proving to be the most impactful player, not only for the most successful teams, but also just the ones that have made it thus far into the season. So, we had I'm going to take that as a W for our earlier fantasy MVP conversation, where I said that was CMC. I think I have a spreadsheet that says so that must mean I'm right.
Well, hold on a minute. Your spreadsheet also has Gabe MFing Davis on it. Okay, so I don't know. The algorithm's broken. The fact that Gabe Davis.
Ownership, not starting. Ownership.
But still,
that means a lot of smart people have Gabe Davis on
their bench. That's right.
Yes.
That's exactly what that means. But now also, Jack, too, so looking at the sheet and the numbers, if I'm not in the top 10, okay, what type of players do I need to get back into the top 10? I probably don't want the players that are already in the top 10, correct?
That's right. So when we're going through each position, now you're going to want to look and the teams or the players that are in the dark green on that left column with a higher percentage in the top 10. If you're on the outside looking in, that's me. I'm literally at 11 right now. Mm-hmm. So I am very much on the other side of the fence trying to break into this elite group here. These are the players that they are getting points from. Now, I'm not going to say, like, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you should sit him in order to get unique or different. Like, that's ridiculous. And there are certainly players that have gotten you here that you need to keep playing. But especially when it comes to close decisions, to flex decisions, to if you have multiple good quarterbacks and you're trying to decide, you're going to want to find ways to score points and have big games from players that aren't necessarily high owned in this top 10. Because they're already ahead of you and they're getting those points from those exact same players. So every time CMC, I've got Christian McCaffrey on my number 11 team, which unfortunately half the teams in front of me are going to be scoring touchdowns the exact same time I do.
Yes. Robbie, looking at this list here real quick before we move on to the position by position, do you have any of these guys kind of on any of your teams you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, and that's obviously this list right here is evident of why I didn't have a good first week. I've got one share of Christian McCaffrey, and unfortunately, I picked Hill twice over McCaffrey when I had the opportunity. So I've got three out of my 10 teams have Hill on it. So that tells you part of the reason why I didn't have a good first week because, I was without him, and then I've got, of course, Thielen is another guy. I've got a handful of shares of my biggest share guys, Rashid Rice. I was a big Rashid Rice guy this year. I loved my 10 through 12 round was I picked up every round. I got Thielen, Ingram, or Rice pretty much. And so Rice, he started the week off great. But unfortunately, without having Hill there for 3 of my teams, that smarted a little bit. And then, but
yeah. Well, the plus side for you, Robbie, is that there's not a single team in the top 10 that has Rashee Rice starting or on the bench. So between that and Tyreek, hopefully looking to come back here in week 16, you should be primed for a good bounce back week here.
Well, I think if the Dolphins are going to have any chance, it's going to be Tyreek Hill going crazy for something crazy. Hopefully his ankle miraculously gets better and he can, put up a big week and the Cowboys can win 52-48 and, Hill can have 5 touchdowns. I don't know.
Love it.
There
No,
you
listen,
go.
anything can happen. I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head there too with CMC. Like his week was so good. It's like if you had him, you were probably gonna be up there. And look, you got 5 teams. I was the same as you. I didn't have a lot of top picks, and when I did, I was going receiver. So in big spots, I do not have any Christian McCaffrey. So again, I didn't have a lot of those top picks. So that's sad for me, but good for everyone who took McCaffrey. The guy was hurt for every game for 3 years, and now he hasn't missed a game into 2 years. So, but I love him. He's excellent. So let's move on to the quarterback position here, Jack, and we can kind of look at this from like a micro perspective. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So when we pop this up here, one of the interesting things you'll see here, 3 out of the top 10 teams are quarterbacked by Matt Stafford. And, if you look, I went through and checked on those 3 teams, and he's not a backup quarterback. He's been on quite a bit of a heater here in the last few weeks, coming on strong at the end of the year. He might have started out a backup quarterback given how this season has progressed, but he is the starting quarterback for 3 of those teams and is definitely overrepresented compared to the field. You've got 3 out of 10 teams in the top 10 having him. And then overall for the rest of the championship field, only 4%. Now, I'll make the caveat. Obviously, the overall numbers are going to be lower because everything. If you're on this list in the top 10, you're going to be at least 10%, 1 out of 10. But that's why it's color coded, and you're looking to see, relatively speaking, who's overrepresented and underrepresented. So Stafford definitely popped out as somebody interesting. If you look a little further down, though, Jalen Hurts, only 2 of 10 have Jalen Hurts, but he has almost twice as many in the overall field as Matt Stafford. So Jalen Hurts, one who isn't killing teams, but he's keeping them in contention, but he obviously isn't driving people to the top 10 at the rate of some other quarterbacks. So that's kind of a sneaky one who I also personally invested in, hopes he really turns it on here in weeks 16 and 17. And then you'll also just see some omissions from this list. You're not going to see Josh Allen on this list, for example. When you only throw the ball
15 times.
Yeah, exactly. And score 17 points at the FFWC, you're not going to be in the top 10. But that's primed in these next 2 games to really catapult teams into the top 10. So if you're not there now and you have Josh Allen, don't panic yet.
Yeah, exactly. Allen's the type of guy that, like you said, you don't see him here, but if you've got him, he's a guy that can catapult you right back up because you'll be starting him and the people ahead of you in the top 10 don't have him. So that's the type of player that you want to have and go through and do that. Robbie, were you on any of these quarterbacks? Ring a bell for some of your teams? Were you a quarterback early guy? Sorry, go ahead.
No, the one team I went early on. Well, 2 teams I went early on a quarterback out of my 10, and I took Mahomes and Allen. So neither one of them performed here. And then of course I stacked Kelsey and Diggs with both of those. So look good if they have one of those incredible weeks, but that didn't pan out. I've got Dak a couple of times, and that didn't work out well. And then I got Tua a couple of times, and then of course the Allen team. And I've had to pick up a few. I lost Herbert and a couple other guys, so I got Flacco on a team. I've got Browning on a couple of teams, so jumped on those guys when they had a couple of big weeks. But like I said, my team that finished 16th in the regular season was stacked with Allen and Diggs. So
yeah, there you go. We had Jack and I had a team that was 10th overall most of the season, and now it's in the 50s. I think it's still got a shot, 50s or 60s, but that was CJ and who was our other quarter? Kyler.
Yeah. Started out Danny Dimes and Geno Smith, and quickly pivoted to CJ Stroud and then Kyler Murray. And
listen, speaking of Geno Smith, how about that sweat Monday night? People are like, "Oh my God, are they going to win now?" I'm good. I've got both quarterbacks. Are they going to announce who's playing in this game? Luckily, in one of the leagues I needed, I started Kyler already on Sunday just to kind of not have to deal with it. Not that Kyler did anything good, but I didn't have to deal with the. I can't even imagine having to sweat that out. Oh my God.
I was messaging during that with Jerry Bryant, who was at work doing some important model review, but had DFS lineups for the showdown and had to figure out, was it lock or Gino from his phone so that he could set the lineup before it locked while at work. So Jerry was doing the real sweat this past Monday.
Oh, gross. All right, let's move on here to the running back position. A little bit more of an interesting kind of position here to look at and take a look. A couple names here. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, Rashad White, Kyren Williams. Those guys have been studs all year. But man, James Cook's a guy that here he comes, right? And people, I don't want to hear. I had my ear to the ground all summer. I'm a Bills fan, Western New York. I was not on James Cook at all during draft season. And the reason why was because he doesn't get goal line carries and they don't throw the ball to the running backs. And that was the case all season. And then they make an offensive coordinator change and they basically traded Gabe Davis for James Cook. They sent Gabe Davis's corpse off to sea, and now James Cook is the guy. So if you've got James Cook and you made it this far, wonderful, good for you. But you kind of got lucky with the offensive coordinator change. But he's going to win a lot of people money.
Yeah, the interesting thing will be when Buffalo's schedule kind of lightens up here towards the end. What they're playing the Chargers next. When they're not in these real high octane games and they've got a little bit of comfort, are they going to go with whatever works? Are they going to appease Diggs? Because obviously he's not going to appreciate being the role that he's had lately with James Cook. Are they going to try to, make everybody happy heading into the postseason, or are they going to continue that? I'm kind of speculating this because I do not have a lot of James Cook, and I'm trying to cope with that fact by creating some of these theories as to why maybe that won't hurt me as much as it should. But will definitely be interesting to see. And an interesting takeaway that I saw, just when you look at running back in these ownership concentrations compared to other positions, far more concentrated than the other positions, with the exception of tight end and Laporta, which we'll get to. Basically, what that tells, when you compare this to quarterback, but especially when you compare it to wide receiver, a lot more concentrated at the top. So, in order to have gotten this far and to be at the front half of the rankings, you really need at least one, if not more, of CMC, James Cook, Ty Chandler, Rashad White, Kyren Williams. There's a lot of different ways to a lot of different receivers to solve the puzzle, but there's only a handful of running backs that at least in week 15 were the answer.
And it's interesting too. I know what type of drafter Jack is. I don't know what type of drafter you are, Robbie, but if you look at this, Jack and I have been doing these podcasts for months and months and months. And you look at this, James Cook, he peaked at 6th round. Ty Chandler, waivers. Rashad White, 6th, 7th, 8th round. Kyren Williams, 13th, 14th round. Chuba, Jalen Warren, Khalil Hurt. None of these guys are 1st, 2nd, 3rd round running backs. These are all, guys who went late running back or guys who went McCaffrey and one of these guys. But most of these guys, man, are not guys that you spent high draft capital on. Whereas if we haven't gotten to the receivers yet, and I could be wrong, but a lot of those receivers, I think, Tyreek and Keenan Allen, obviously. But again, this doesn't show how many fantasy points these guys scored, but it just goes to show you a lot of these teams are winning with, late round draft capital on running backs. Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah. And here again in running back, of course, 2 of my big snags were Stevenson and Taylor, who are out along with Hill. So I had nice benches on some of these teams with Taylor, Hill, and Stevenson out. Then I had Mixon. I had some shares of Mixon. Swift and Walker. Swift was, I was loving getting Swift every 7th round, and at the beginning of the year, it looked like he was going to be something special. Ironic enough, I was total. I stayed away from Minnesota. I didn't like the backfield. I didn't know which one was going to do it. They were talking about bringing other guys. Same thing with Buffalo. There was some mention early on in the year that they might bring in some help, and I was like, is it going to be James Cook? Who's it going to? What's going to happen? I know he's a great talent, but I stayed off those 2 guys specifically. Minnesota and Buffalo, just stayed out of that backfield altogether. 0 shares of both those guys. So once again, another reason why week 15 wasn't a good one for me. But so far this year, I mean, I had James Cook or Chandler hasn't hurt me that bad because, I'm happy with my through the year. I was happy with my running backs, and like I said, I've won Christian McCaffrey's share. I took Hill twice in front of him with the same idea, getting some good, taking your Swifts, Montgomerys, those kind of guys later in the draft.
Man, I tell you, I have Swift in some big spots too, man. And last night or a couple of nights ago, he just looked terrible. It's not even like one of those Bijan things where you complain like, well, the guy doesn't get the touches. Yeah. They tried everything in their power. I had a 5K with Swift on it where I just needed him to get going. They were giving it to him inside the 5. He couldn't get in. Then he gets in. It's him and a guy blocking in front of him in the end zone, and he runs into the freaking ass end of his lineman and doesn't get in.
Kelsey,
he freaking dunked. It was terrible. He was terrible.
I think Jason Kelsey tackled him on the ones so that they could push him.
Oh, dude, Jalen Hurts plays on a 97-yard football field every freaking week. They don't even huddle. A guy goes down at the 2, they don't even huddle. They just walk up and they push him in. It's like it's unbelievable. But sorry, that's my rant.
I agree
on Swift. But yeah, no, it's just some interesting spots here. And again, having these guys, not having these guys doesn't mean that they were good or they were bad. That's just interesting to see the type of player, the type of running back, where you were able to draft them to get in and be in the top 10. And like you said, you got a lot of Tyreek Hill. Hopefully Tyreek plays this week. It's good to have at this point. If you're trying to catch up, you want the Tyreek Hills, you want the Josh Allens, you want the explosive players who the top 10 don't really have. That way you can
Jonathan Taylor.
You can fight Jonathan Taylor fully practiced this week, right? So and Moss didn't, I think. So I haven't been deep in the news today, but I think that's how it is. So
right.
That's another guy that could just bang, put you right back up there. There's 2 weeks left. It's not a ton of time, but I came in the top 5 a couple of years ago, and I was like 39th going into the final week. And flew up to like 3rd on that final Sunday. So you can still get there, guys. Don't be, I don't know what the points are. Jack might have them in front of him, but the difference between 1st and 40th, 50th is probably not that many points. So it's one big job. Like if Josh Allen goes for 35 and Stafford goes for 15, well, there's 20 points right there. So, but anyways, any more thoughts here, Jack, on the running back position?
Yeah, there's a few. I was interested or surprised, I guess is the better word. You have to scroll down to find Kenneth Walker. He's only one in the top 10. Definitely owned larger in the field, but I guess what surprised me so much is that he looked really good and explosive, and had a good Monday Night Football, and especially given that Charbonnet was healthy as well, and that they really just gave it to him and let him dominate, very similar to how they did in the start of the season before they started to kind of cut into 50-50. I was a little surprised that he wasn't more higher represented. That also may be draft styles. That may just be that in the 5th or 6th round that these players were taking other people. But that's also a unique leverage point, an explosive running back that just coming off of he certainly didn't kill you in week 15 and is looking primed, given his role, to do well over the next 2 weeks. That could be another one of those high leverage players that helps kind of catapult you ahead into these top 10.
Again, how stupid. They're playing against the worst secondary in football with Slay hurt. And they're pounding out Kenneth Walker. Listen, we're contractually obligated to talk about JSN. Oh, let's throw to JSN touchdown. Game win. They finally decide to throw the ball, and they go right down the field and score. Like Pete Carroll I just can't stand the sight of him. It's just kind of like he stumbles into these wins. Like, why would you come out and ground and pound? Oh, it's just so dumb. Like all those Seattle receivers out there against that terrible secondary. But man, oh man, what a mess. But you're right. The numbers say Kenneth Walker's a guy that, again, can catapult you if you were able to kind of get in there with him at this point.
Gibbs is the same. Only one in the top 10 has
I'm surprised.
Gibbs.
Yeah. He had a great game.
And which I think that's just another case of draft styles, not necessarily that he was not a good enough player to get you here, but that the top 10 players were probably taking receiver when other people were taking Gibbs. So if you've got Gibbs and, you're looking back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, like it's not over. You're still live. And that's a way to easily lap some people with in these next 2 weeks.
For sure. All right, we're gonna move on here to the receiver position, Jack's favorite position in the history of sports. So we'll slide over here and we'll see. Oh, Debo, of course. Thielen's a shocker to me. I mean, Thielen was on all the top teams because he helped get you there for the most part, but then he didn't do much of anything in that first round game. So I'm interested to see him on there. It probably we didn't even start him in a couple of leagues, Jack, in the teams that we have. And I was okay with it, and I still am okay with it. Even the Keenan Allen's up there. You'd think you'd see like more Jordan Addison than you would see Keenan Allen, considering he got zeros. But what do you think about this receiver position here?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. So like number 3 is Quentin Johnston. And I went through and he was not started on any of those 3 teams, but a common bench player. So you can strike QJ as just irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Keenan Allen, the same thing, injured and given the state of the team, not sure if he's in a rush to come back. So if you look at the wide receiver position, it's really wide open. You've got Debo, given the performance he's had over the past 3 weeks. T. Higgins is certainly interesting with Jamar Chase out this week and likely next. But then after that, it's not dispersed at all, which tells me that if you're a little further back and you've got a team that's you really invested your draft capital into wide receivers, you've got good wide receivers who are performing, you're not locked back there. If you've got wide receiver options, there's not a lot of teams that are going to maybe duplicate your particular combination of wide receivers given how dispersed they are. And part of that's also a function of the format. When you're starting 3 wide receivers, it forces a little bit more diversification, which means that you're going to get more unique combinations. It's a great place to get unique. But yeah, if you look, just at even the players who got you here are not the players that are continuing onward, and the high ownership players that you're talking about, like Keenan Allen, it's going to be somebody else from this point forward. And that's kind of the chaos of this season we're seeing now unfold in these final 3 weeks.
Yeah, and that's good. So yeah, Robbie, we're looking here. We got Tyreek Hill is only on one top 10 team. So that's always good, man. Like that's what you need. That's what you want to see after a bad week like that, right? Do you have any of these other receivers?
Rashid Rice on there? I don't know. Rashid Rice is even on, is he?
Nope, not even in the top 10. No. There's not a single team.
Not a single team. So there you go.
There's one of my big shares is Thielen, but he hasn't done, like you said, you even start him at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, my biggest share of receivers this year was Rice, then Hill, Thielen, Evans, Kirk, and Tank Dell. Once again, why I didn't do good last.
Yeah.
They're both gone. And then Curtis Samuel, and unfortunately, being a Cowboys fan, if you remember, I was big on Brandon Cooks. I just thought he would come in and do something special, and I was between him and Addison pretty much every 6th, 7th round, and unfortunately, I took Brandon Cooks more than I took Addison. So, I got Addison, but there's Devontae Adams. I got him. Yeah, I need the Tyreek Hill Rice combo to go crazy next week, and that'll be helpful.
I'm just kind of surprised that even the guy like. Amon-Ra had a great game. Cooper Kupp had a great game. Like these guys that are just not, Cooper Kupp 1% of the field, yes, 1% overall, and then 10% in the top 10. That's very interesting to me. So you're super excited if you have a Cooper Kupp team, if he can keep it up. Chase probably isn't going to play this week, so I think he's actually ruled out. I think so. You're not going to use him, but yeah, there's some interesting players. Again. You're excited if you see your superstars down here at the bottom. Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra, Cooper Kupp.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore.
Samuel I got 3 times. So
yeah. Olave, I'm surprised even Olave is this high considering he didn't play either. But Tyreek Hill. Yeah. So guys, listen, I'm excited to see this spreadsheet that Jack put together because again, a lot of the guys that I've got on my teams are down here at the bottom, and that's what I want to see. I want to see those guys
DJ
down there.
Moore, yeah.
Help me come back a little bit. But I still can't get over just Gabe Davis. Get out of my face with that. All right. Anything else, Jack, for the receiver position?
No. Let's move on to tight end because I think that's really interesting as well from an ownership perspective.
For sure.
It is Laporta and then everybody else. And when it comes to the top 10, 4 out of those 10 have Laporta. The second being Cade Otton, but Cade Otton, I looked, he's functioning as a backup tight end on those top 10 teams. So it is, same thing with Tucker Kraft. I was surprised Trey McBride, not only just 2 teams in the top 10, but 1% of the overall championship field. Like, I guess Trey McBride just got picked up on the waiver wire by a bunch of teams that didn't make it through. So if you have Trey McBride and you performed reasonably well, but not top 10 well in week 15, you still have a very legitimate out. Now, if you've got an okay team and you're relying on Sam Laporta to try to get you ahead, you've got a tough road to hoe in front of you. But there are a lot of different options. Isaiah Likely coming on strong here at the end and looking really good. We'll have to see if Hunter Henry is able to come back at any point with that knee injury he sustained. But I think the point here is just really the overall concentration in Laporta. He is driven. He and James Cook appear to be the Week 15 wonders that have driven people to the top of the board. Their continued success is going to rest on those 2 players, and your success in getting into the top 10 is going to have to come elsewhere.
Robbie, were you on the Laporta bandwagon? Like, how did you attack the tight end position in this format?
So, in 5 of my 10 teams, I took Evan Ingram. I loved him in the 10th, 11th round. Unfortunately, Laporta I had a couple of times in my mid stakes, none in my large, World Series and World Championship. But yeah, and then I got Kelsey once. I got, I actually picked up Hunter twice, and he's on my bench this week twice. That was good.
There you go. That helps. That helps. No, I'm actually really proud of myself because normally one of my kind of rules, my hard and fast rules, is never draft rookie tight ends because they just never perform. And when they do, an all-time rookie tight end season is not even that good at all. So I normally I'm off, but this year I don't know what it was. If it was just, it looked like the league was kind of going that way. I was big on Kincaid. Kincaid did the build. They're using them a lot more as tight end. I don't know if maybe because the Lions coach was a former tight end and all that stuff. So, but I was on Laporta this year, whereas normally I wouldn't be. And he has definitely paid off. He's the future of the position. I think him and Kincaid are both the future of the position. There's obviously a couple of Trey McBride as well. Njoku has been like a surprise. He finally breaks out. He just needed Joe Flacco apparently to unlock the madness that is David Njoku. But it was just a position, and especially in this format too, where you can wait so long on tight end. I mean, I was able to get, for the past couple of years, you were able to get George Kittle in the 9th round. Why am I going to take, unless I'm stacking? I do have in the mid stakes, Robbie, like you're saying, I have a lot of Kelsey Mahomes in the mid stakes because you were able to get them at the right price for sure. But yeah, Laporta's been the guy. And if you want to catch, if you don't have Laporta, and you're trying to catch these guys, you need Laporta to slow down because that's how you're going to be able to catch them. All these guys that you don't have, you need them to stop and you need to catch them. So it's going to be interesting.
Probably one of my biggest misses from this past draft season, and not because I was out on Laporta or skeptical of the rookie tight ends or something like that, but more so just it just didn't fit with that stage of the draft. I ended up getting a lot of Mark Andrews. I was really big on. I wanted. I had a little Kelsey, but it was Kelsey, Mark Andrews, and then T.J. Hawkinson, maybe a little bit of Kittle. But I really tried to prioritize tight end and just have something done. And then at that point, once I've already invested something like that, Laporta was going just a little. I was able to kind of make those rationalizations in my head, instead of going Laporta 10, 11, 12, I can wait for 2 more rounds and get Gesicki, or I can get, Hunter Henry or somebody like that. and that'll pan out about the same. And that was definitely a big miss on my part that now is biting me in the ass. So we'll see if I get bailed out here in the next 2 weeks for that.
That's right. That's right. Listen, we all need to get bailed out a little bit here every now and then. But yeah, no, listen, this is great stuff, Jack. The quarterbacks and the running backs, receivers, tight ends. This is all good information to have. It's certainly helpful for people looking to, to try to catch up, to kind of gauge how your team is doing, and gauge like maybe what you need to do to kind of get past these teams. Anything else you want to say before we kind of move on to the next topic, as far as like the sheet and just are you going to update this bad boy for next week's podcast, you think, or what are you thinking?
I'm sure I will. I started making this for self-interested reasons so that I could plot what I'm going to do for this week, and then I decided it'd probably be better to share and let everybody in on it. So I'm sure I'll be up late doing this when my wife is asking why am I not in bed. So
it's Jake from State Farm, babe. It's Jake from State Farm. Right? Don't worry.
It's Adam from Full Time. It's Adam from Full Time.
That's right. I love it. But no, that's excellent stuff, Jack. Thanks for doing that. And before we move on to kind of talking about some more stuff, I want to remind everyone we got the fantasy playoff challenge coming out this year. Again, guys, it's really great stuff. They have a lot of different playoff challenges for fantasy over at the FFWC. But one of my favorites is kind of like their big one. For the grand prize is $20,000, guys. They also pay out within the league $500. You also can get a second place, gets $125 FFWC bucks. There's 6-team draft, 6 teams, as in the number 6. Teams drafts. It's serpentine, just like a normal draft, and you can draft any amount of players from any team. It doesn't matter, and you roll through. I think it's $229 for those, and that's super fun. Those are excellent. I'll probably do a couple of those coming up here, and that starts right after obviously the regular season. So I'm excited to do those, and we'll probably live stream one of those. I know I did that last year and the year before, so I know Jack and I'll be rocking and rolling in those. Robbie, did you do the playoff challenge a little last year?
I love that's honestly one of my favorites. I mean, it's because you're not only picking players, but you're also picking, is this guy going to play 2 or 3 games? Maybe he could get 4 games, the whole thing. And it's just, a couple of years back, I don't know, it was the year that Jacksonville was beating New England, and I had a stack with, Jacksonville and the other team, and had Jacksonville won that game that New England pulled off late, I mean, there was nobody that was going to catch me. I mean, it was, I think it was Blake Bortles was my quarterback or something like that. You know what I mean? It was one of those. And it's just, but that's what's so cool about it because, you can draft a tight end, Kittle, they only play one, 49ers get beat out in the first game, but he scores 40 points in the first game and he outscores all the tight ends through it. And you're like looking like a hero because, no, I think that playoff, it is, to me, it's every bit as fun as the whole season, and it's short. So with all its short, attention span, folks, you get in, you get out, and you can do the draft in 25 minutes.
It's quick. Yeah, it's like 14 rounds, I think, something like that. It's quick. Again, I like that it's different. Each kind of you can find different type of competitions all over the internet, and each one's kind of different. This is similar to like an underdog format where you can draft as many players from the same team. Only 6 teams. It's really fun. The payouts are excellent. You get $20,000 up top. I did pretty well last year. And like you said, it's fun trying to strategize who's going to win. And then, you can't make it to the champion. You can't make it to the Super Bowl with 2 guys on a team. You got to, now it's also, the other thing too, is it's cumulative points as well. Like it's not just like you don't start from 0 every single week. So if you have a guy, if you have a 150 point lead going into the Super Bowl, well, maybe you only need 1 or 2 guys. Yeah. So interesting strategy, so much fun. For the people who are fans of teams that don't make the playoffs, it gives you that kind of extra motivation to kind of watch and enjoy it. So
that's what Jack is a spreadsheet on that one.
That's right. No, he's keeping that all to himself.
Because it's amazing. There was one year in there, the guy won it. He didn't have a bunch of guys in the Super Bowl, but he had such a gigantic lead coming in, and he just had maybe a handful of guys. I mean, in other words, he wasn't stacked both ways, and he won it. And I was like looking through his team, I'm like, he didn't hardly stack anything and won the whole thing, but yet most years, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
stacks from both, the winning, teams in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, a player that like that would be maybe was on his team that year was maybe like a Gabe Davis. Only played 2 games, but went for 70 fantasy points or whatever it was in that round 2 game and lost. But it gives you that nice boost, that advantage. So yeah, we'll definitely do a show on that for sure, and that'll be fun. But for now, let's talk about Jack's. Let's show Jack's team here that he's got in the number 11 overall. You guys don't want to look at it that way. That's ugly. Here we go. So this is Jack's team here, who's got his starters and his bench. Will obviously be messing with, although he's probably changed this 12 times today. For this show, this is all espionage. He's not even. This is his bench he's starting right now. Just to
this is one big psyop. I'm just trying to. Yeah. Those were all fake numbers in the spreadsheet. I'm just trying to, all of the comments, word associations,
throw everybody off.
Their own.
That's right. This is spycraft stuff we got going on. But
yeah, that's right.
So yeah, talk to us about. Obviously, you want to compare some of these players to the sheet you just showed. Like you've got the Christian McCaffrey, Achane. I didn't see on that list at all. Kyron was on there. So JS, of course, you're gonna. I want you to win this whole thing with freaking ride JS under to the end. But go ahead, talk about your team.
Yeah. So this, I love this team. When I drafted this team, this was the team when I came to bed and my wife was up and she said, "How did you do?" And I said, "If I win, it's going to be with this team." I remember drafting it. It was a beauty. So
there you go.
Jalen Hurts, has had some big games this year, but just they look out of sorts. They part of that is because they've been playing some great competition. They've got the Giants and the Cardinals, so we'll see if that turns it around. I'm proud on this one I took the hero RB approach. Christian McCaffrey, but also drafted, not waiver wired, but drafted Kyron Williams and Devon Achane, which proud to have grabbed those guys. Like you mentioned, Devon Achane not in the top 10 and not really in teams in the top 20, 30. He's very low owned at the top here. So, the roles have seemed to shift it a bit in the past few games. Both that could be due to injury or to circumstance, trying to get Mostert the touchdown record for the Miami Dolphins, or maybe they just want to keep Achane healthy for the stretch. Whatever it is, I'm hoping that Achane can do his best James Cook impersonation against the Dallas Cowboys this week. I'm hoping he can do those outside perimeter runs and stretch runs, take advantage of the speed. And if it's a competitive game, get those targets as well. And then, from there, it's been an interesting team. Actually, one of my favorite players is Dallas Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey.
What a beast. He's been insane.
I mean, had his lowest score in week 15, but the week prior to, when I'm, trying to lock up that number 2 most point spot in this league, bailed me out with 24 points on that particular game. So given the trust they have in him, they are just fine when they get 60 yards out, letting him boot it, which hoping that happens here in the next 2 weeks. Wide receivers, but a bit of a mess. I had some injuries on this team. Mike Williams, I've been dealing with, lost. Might not have Jaden Reed for this particular week. Just lost Keaton Mitchell. Wide receiver, running back, but obviously one of the flexes. So, and probably one of the more frustrating things is that I do have Jordan Addison on this team, and he scored 28 points for my bench last week. I just didn't have the confidence, and unfortunately, I am about 28 points back from the number 1 spot, so that one's going to eat me for a while. But, I do like my Jaden Reed, so I had to start him and, contractually obligated to start Jackson Smith and Jigba. I do think Geno Smith coming back, it's a whole different ball game. They were much more pass heavy. Pass rate over expectation in Seattle was much higher with Geno Smith. They just didn't trust Drew Lock. That's fine. But I'm hoping that game-winning touchdown from JSN in the rain, over the shoulder fake, just beautiful catch. Maybe that'll get a little bit more trust in him for the last push. But Debo's been the horse I've been riding. I've been trying to figure out what to do in the tight end lottery. I also had Hunter Henry score 19 points on my bench, and Isaiah Likely 18 points. And Adam, I even texted you and I said Goddard or Likely. and you said likely, and I said I know
Speaking
better.
of having trust, speaking of having trust, come on, what are we doing here?
Should have listened to Adam from Full Time, but yeah, that's where we're looking.
Excellent.
It's an exciting team. It's got a lot of the pieces that have been just those big games from like Kyron, CMC. I'm hoping Olave is back and healthy here. He's going to play on Thursday, but I hope Derek Carr can find him or get injured quick and let Jameis find him, one way or the other. They're in that hot playoff race now that Atlanta has dropped out. It's them and Tampa Bay, so hopefully they pour it on here on Thursday. But yeah, it's an exciting team. Debo, CMC, rooting for the Niners there, and we'll see what happens. But I think this team is going to live or die on Devon Achane. So
listen, speaking of
that's
Achane,
going to be the game I'm watching.
We've got a couple. I have a team, and we have a couple co-owned teams with Kyron, Achane, and Olave. I'm gonna need you to bench those guys, okay? So we can catch up. Because I'm looking, I'm like, oh no, how are we gonna catch up? We got a lot of the same guys, but we also have a lot of different guys too. So yeah, Robbie, talk to me about some kind of common guys you've got maybe on some of your teams that are kind of chasing it here at the end. Who you counting on here down the stretch?
Well, before we get to that, I was just gonna say Achane with what Cooks did. He might Cook did last week. Achane may have 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, so you never know. But if the Gals can't figure out a way to stop the run, it could be with him and Monster back there, that could be scary. But
well, can I just say something real quick? Yeah. Only because this is fantasy, and people obviously, if you have Achane, you're probably starting him anyways. But the Cowboys played 6.5 men in the box because of Josh Allen. I don't know. Obviously, you're afraid of Tyreek and Waddle, but I don't think anyone's really afraid of Tua enough to put 6.5 men in the box. I feel like they might put 7, 7.5, 8. Like, I feel like they're more afraid of the run game than they would be. And the Bills wouldn't let up. They're like, if you're going to keep putting 6.5 men, we're going to keep running it. And the weather was nasty. Yeah. So obviously you're starting Achane, but I don't think the Cowboys defense is as bad as they were last
year. Let's hope not.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to interject with some hopium here. I'm gonna say that they were putting 6.5 guys in the box because their defensive tackle and star run stopper Jonathan Hankins was injured and is going to be out this week as well.
Yeah,
he was one of their last season additions that they went out and specifically got because they were terrible stopping the run, and he was excellent this whole season. And they didn't have him, so they had to make it up in the aggregate and just try to get more guys in there. So that's what I'm going to tell myself as I prepare to watch the Miami-Dallas game with 150,000 on the line.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Robbie.
Oh yeah, no. Like I said, rough week 15 for me. So, my top team, of course, has McCaffrey on it, but. I had Henry who put a 5 up, when, that wasn't too good. And, I've got Evans and Thielen and Cooper and Hawkinson on that team. So, hoping got the Cowboys kicker. I got Flacco as my quarterback because I lost 3 quarterbacks along the way there, and so, but he's been fine. And I picked up Josh Palmer. So if he could, you never know. I mean, he could come through, and so that one. And then, of course, my team who finished 16th in the regular season with, I've got Allen, and that's where that team kind of has my guys that I almost drafted, other than my first 3 picks were Josh Allen, and then I came back with Diggs and Adams, in reverse order. But then I've got Mixon, I've got Swift, I've got Walker, I've got Brandon Cooks, I've got Rice, Ingram. Cowboys kicker, Cowboys defense. So you never know. But I'm so out that I'm just looking to have a miraculous week and, get back in it. So.
That's right. Well, listen, how many, I think you mentioned it earlier. Did you get any dominators this year, Robbie?
1.
There you go. Well, listen, that pays for almost the whole thing anyway. So good for you, man. That's always nice.
Yeah. Got a dominator. And then I got, like I said, the one in the league playoffs looking okay. And then, my all 4 of my 5, mid stakes are looking like they give me a team for next year. So we'll see. I got 2 in first place in the league and 1 in second place and 1 in third place that are all within reason. So we'll see. So,
well, absolutely killer advance rates, Robbie.
Seriously, dude.
That is insane to advance that many of your
Yeah.
teams. And
Pretty lucky there.
Definitely a good place to do it here. FFWC, the ROI at the league level and being able, regardless of how you do in the championship round, not to say that you're not going to pull it out, but it's nice to have the money in the bank, or at least, have one of those teams that you've racked up those points and are now able to compete against either one team or another 3 teams and, get that bankroll back without having to sweat out the championship round too.
Well, that's what's so great about the way the payouts work and the way everything works here is because, I took my winnings from last year and bought all my teams from this year. You know what I mean? And so it's and now, like I said, you dominate 1 out of 10 teams, and that pays for a good chunk of it. And that you play some mid-stakes, win a couple of teams, and next thing you know, you got 10 teams for next year, just like that. And so it's really cool how they do things. I think they do a phenomenal job of running everything. I love like I said, anyone that missed Circa this year, I'd figure a way to get out there next year. It was really cool event. So
it's an excellent event, and it's going to be even bigger and better this next upcoming season. I know that for sure. I obviously can't say anything yet, but there'll be a lot more stuff, a lot more social activities and stuff. So I think it's going to be really, really good. And they're going to be doing stuff all summer there with Circa. Like you can go do your home leagues there. You can go do mid-stakes drafts there all throughout August. Like, people were drafting with Darius Rucker last year. I mean, come on. I mean, what other place is doing that? So excellent stuff. But
I've done it at the Palms, the Mirage, the MGM, and Circa. So Circa is definitely well up there. But they're all were great venues. They were all incredible. Yeah. But yeah, Circa was off the hook last year. So
it was fantastic. I had never been to Fremont Street, so the Fremont Street experience was something to behold. There was something going on at all times, and some interesting people watching, to be sure. But for everybody sitting at home that didn't come out last summer, I would definitely consider it. There is something about being able to draft face-to-face with all these people that you draft all summer with online and tell them how wrong they are to their face. It's a treat. So definitely encourage everybody to come out and beat the 3 of us.
That's right. Let's go.
Yep.
Listen, it's the best ROI in the business out there too. I mean, you don't have to go out there to get the ROI, but it's also top 3 people watching in the world. Like you said, at Fremont Street, my God, like just, the sites that I saw, I'm just standing out there late at night for an hour, just watching all the mad concerts going on at 1 a.m. It's just bananas.
3 or 4 concerts at the same time. You walk down this, and it's, do I want classic rock? No, I'm feeling country music. Well, that's about 30 steps down that way. So
good. But all right, boys. Well, listen, Robbie, thanks so much for joining us, man. This was excellent talking to you. Again, congratulations on your successful season so far, the ROI, the advance rate, excellent stuff. Jack, again, thanks for joining me, and we will see you. We'll see you next week, and we'll break down week 2 of the fantasy playoffs. We'll see you guys.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.